Oh, okay. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit just before we start. And I want to thank Rabbi Friedman, Rabbi Shmuley Friedman, for inviting me to do this. I'm a shlucha here in Kansas City for many years. I've been involved in adult education for as long as I've been a shlucha. I'm also a temperament certified professional, psychology. It's understanding how people are wired. Do you hear me well? Because there's noise a little bit in the background. I have some workers in the house, so I apologize. So I am, and so I do, it's about the wiring, how a person is wired from birth and how it informs you in life. And so to me, Tanya is absolutely fascinating because so much of what I've learned in temperament theory, I've learned in Tanya. And to be able to apply it, it's just remarkable. And I also run well, I'm very involved with our Chabad house, and I also run a kosher Meals on Wheels program. So this has been a very busy time, hundreds of meals going out a week to homebound seniors, people living with a disability. So very involved in connection. And that's what Tanya, to me, talks about more than anything else. And I find Tanya fascinating. No matter how much I learn it and how to use it in my life on a daily basis, in my when I work with clients, it's just remarkable. Years ago, we had a woman here. We have shlichim, you know, maybe probably in Cleveland you do too. And from Israel, they come, they stay for 2 years, and then they go back and they teach. So we had this shlicha, she came over to me and she said to me, she had just arrived, we'd gotten to know each other a little bit, and she was very observant, completely covered her head. You know, you have a whole range when they come, but this one was completely observant, Chol Yisrael, the whole works, right? And she says to me, I want to ask you something. What is the purpose? What is the role that is for a woman in this world, according to Torah? So I said to her, and she says, I know that I'm here for my husband to give him the ability to sit and learn Torah as much as possible. So I have to make it easier for him. I'm here to serve him so that he can sit and learn. Well, what is specifically my role? So I said to her, and she's a mother of 6 children, I know her, and I said to her, and a mother in Israel is nothing to you? So she said, yeah, of course. I mean, it's not nothing, of course, but it's not even my mitzvah. Because the mitzvah of having children is a man's. And I'm not going to go into the whole halachic understanding of that, but so I said to her, I repeated my question. I said, a mother in Israel is nothing to you? Ain't Israel to be a mother in Israel? You know, you're just coming up. She wouldn't accept it. I said, you know what? We need to learn. I'm doing this. We need to learn Tanya. Now, when she first came here, it was very hard for her to see all these people living in the United States. Why isn't everybody making an aliyah, the whole bit? And she had never learned Chassidus before. And by the time she left after 2 years, she was like, where am I going to get this in Israel? I said, whoa, if you can find something in Torah in Kansas City, that is what Tanya does. Another story I'd like to share with you before I get into it is I was giving a class to women, feminists, very liberal feminists. They wanted to learn with me Torah, Parsha. So I started in Bereshis, and when it came to the first day, and he said, let there be light, one of the women said to me, and she said, she's like, call God she. I said, no problem. You can call God she. God is neither a he or she, and God has both masculine and feminine in him. So you can call God she. Torah calls God he. So I will stick to the he, because that's the way Torah calls, and that's what I'm teaching. But if you want to call God she, I have no problem. When we came to Adam and Chava, and I explained the creation of Chava, I said to her that I told her, I had forgotten this conversation about she, because it wasn't that big a deal for me. But anyway, so I explained to them that the entire purpose of creation was for the feminine. The entire purpose of creation was for relationship. God wanted a relationship. He wanted a dira b'tachtonim. He wanted a dwelling place here on earth. In Hebrew, there's no such thing as it. There's only masculine and feminine. Everything, shoes is feminine, table is masculine. How that their roots are masculine, I have no idea. But in Hebrew, the way God created the world, everything falls under masculine, feminine. There is no neutral gender. There's no such thing, okay? So I said to her, the entire purpose of creation, and I said to the class, the entire purpose of creation was for the feminine. That's why the Eibishter created the world. The Eibishter wanted a dwelling place here on earth, not alone, but with a wife, with a people. The people will become his wife. And therefore you see, even in the words of Hebrew, when you come to the words of creation, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, the different worlds of creation, they're all feminine. Torah is feminine. Neshama is feminine. I said the entire purpose of creation was for the feminine. The masculine represents the God. Okay, the feminine represents the Shekhinah, the Jewish people, the collective Jewish people, right? So the masculine is all inclusive. In Hebrew, people include men and women, and that is masculine, right? Children, male and female, it's all that's masculine. You can say boys, it's still masculine, you know that. But in Hebrew, the masculine is all inclusive. The feminine is exclusive. What's better, inclusive or exclusive? And that depends on the situation. The dearer something is, the more exclusive it is. Okay, so this idea that the feminine is a negative, and what the beauty of Chassidus is, what the beauty of Tanya teaches us, it doesn't focus on men and women. Even though Tanya brings out many of the mitzvot, it focuses on the masculine mitzvot, like tefillin or study Torah. Many of that is because if you put yourself in the category 200 years ago, 200 when it was written, the men studied much more than women. The situation in those days were that even for men, it was so difficult to study. So the Tanya speaks more to the masculine in terms of mitzvot, because that's who it was. Those are the people learning it. But what you find even from the Alter Rebbe, women were always involved in learning. And he encouraged it tremendously. He taught his daughter how much in Maimarim he said for his daughter. So the idea of women and men learning, Chassidus, it's just a huge thing. And that what is better, masculine or feminine, the more Chassidus you learn, the more you realize that you think, oh, masculine is better, and then it'll come and teach you the benefit of the feminine. Now you think feminine is better, it's going to come and teach you a greater level of masculine. Now you think, oh, masculine is better, it's going to teach you a greater level of feminine. Until you come to the realization, it's relationship. And for the creation of the world, what is crucial is what the feminine offers. So when I learn Tanya, it's always with a feminine eye. It's always about, it's very much about relationship. I really, again, it's just look how Tanya starts. And if you have any questions, you can, I don't know, I'll leave it up to Rabbi Friedman to decide how he's going to do that. Hold on. Okay. So Tanya starts telling us from the very beginning, the very beginning, it has been taught, okay? This is in Talmud, right? This has been taught. An oath is administered to him before birth, warning him, be righteous and be not wicked. And even if the whole world tells you that you are righteous, regard yourself as if you were wicked. And this needs to be understood. Why? Because the Mishnah comes and tells us, be not wicked in your own estimation. So on the one hand, if the whole world tells you you're righteous, you're a tzaddik, look at yourself not like a tzaddik. And on the other hand, be not wicked in your own estimation. And then the Tanya goes into a whole explanation. That's where it starts. And it tells, and it starts out the very first chapter telling us our makeup. To me, I've learned it for years. And then things just pop out. What I find so amazing about this very beginning is that it tells us right away it's all about relationship. Because what is it saying? If the entire world tells you you're righteous, yeah, that's what you're supposed to be. but regard yourself as if you were wicked. Why? Because in relationship, when is enough enough? When I come to a point and I've said I've done enough, I'm not talking about abuse. I'm talking about healthy relationships. In healthy relationships, when do I've done enough, done, I'm finished. It's not about the relationship, it's about me. If I don't have the strength, if I have to take a step back for my health, that's all different. That's not what we're talking about. But don't look at yourself as righteous means I've done my duty. In relationship, that doesn't work. In a true relationship, and there is no such thing. If I really, truly care about you, how do I look at myself? I've done enough. That can't happen. And the same thing with our relationship with God. So the Tanya right away starts off with relationship. But in order to have a relationship, in order for me to value you, I need to know me. And I also need to know my strengths. It's easy to say, be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha, but never look at yourself like a tzaddik. Even what is that? Wait a minute. Okay. How does that get into my psyche and how do I understand myself and how do I know what to do with this? Okay. Because Tanya is not talking about mitzvahs. He's not telling you how to keep Shabbos. He's not giving the instructions of how to do what's right. It's talking about your makeup. Understand yourself so that you can have the relationship you need with God and with everyone around you. But you have to understand yourself. You have to know your strengths, okay? And so right away it says, wait a minute, this is our makeup. We have two souls. First parak says, we've got a soul that is the worldly soul. We'll call it the animal soul. Why is it called the animal soul? Because the animal soul takes care of our physical needs. The godly soul doesn't care about eating, doesn't care about sleeping, but we cannot survive. If God wanted a godly soul only, we would never have earth. We would have heaven. And earth, in heaven, they don't eat, they don't sleep, okay? So the first thing you start out with is with an animal soul. And the animal soul is here to take care of us because we cannot survive. So is it a good thing? It's a very good thing. But the animal soul needs to eat. It needs to eat. So the baby cries to eat. It wants to be dry. The baby cries to be diapered. It needs. And the more you feed it, the more you need. And so parents step in and say, at the age of 2, you got to start cheering, right? So the animal soul needs to be trained according to how to handle this need. And then we have a godly soul. It's chapter 2. The interesting thing is the godly soul doesn't come in. It comes in at birth a tiny bit. And then at the age 3, a little bit more. That's why we have the Upsharnish. We celebrate, lighting candles. For 3 years old is both boys and girls is for every Jew. That's when we get a little more of the soul. But at the bar bat mitzvah, that's when the godly soul comes in. A little, I don't know if it's a little late, not for God, but by the time we get it, we are so used to our animal soul. And boy, that struggle between what I want and what God wants is a whole different ballgame. So, and that's why children only need to be trained. You can't judge children. And parents call me, my 4-year-old isn't acting right. I said, what does it mean isn't acting right? They're 4 years old. My 8-year-old isn't acting right. Wait a minute, what does that mean? Okay, it isn't until bar bat mitzvah that right and wrong comes in, but you must have training because if you wait till then, it's a little late. So that's what Tanya comes to teach us. You think you're mixed up, you get all this, you have this struggle within you. You want to think about yourself, but there is a need to think about someone else. And you have this inner struggle. Oh yeah, we have a nefesh habamis, and we have an animal soul, and we have a godly soul. And that animal soul has been with us much longer than the godly soul. So when we want, yeah, that's life. Now, what are you going to do with it? And Tanya comes to teach us how you work with your animal soul, how you work with your godly soul, which is just fascinating, and tells us we're not crazy. Okay? Everything in life is about relationship. Everything in life. Take relationship out, how I view myself, how much is that impacted by the way others view me? How much is my day impacted by what my expectations of others and what I want? Okay, so you raise children, they don't turn out exactly the way you want it. How much does that impact your life? Your husband, your spouse isn't exactly the way you think he ought to be today or tomorrow or yesterday, or in general. How does that impact your life? You're single and you wish you had a relationship. How much does buying the best thing in the world, the nicest pair of shoes, the most beautiful piece of furniture, the house, impact your life to the extent of relationship on a day-to-day basis? Okay, so relationship is so huge, right? So Tanya right away tells us you're going to have a struggle. We all have a struggle. And that's a struggle with relationship because you're created with relationship. You're created with relationship of a yetzer, an animal soul and a godly soul. You're created with the struggle of doing right and wrong. Okay, doing for me, doing for you. That's the whole world. Is it going to be me or you? Is it going to be me or God? That's it. And that's what Tanya comes to teach. And how do you become healthy with this huge struggle of capital I? Okay, that's what Tanya's coming to teach us, which is really remarkable. And I wanted to go through the first few chapters very quickly. But before I go there, Tanya tells us time and time again that the world was created for the Baal Teshuva, not for the tzaddik. If God wanted a world of tzaddikim, we would all be in heaven. You don't have to bring tzaddikim down here to value tzaddikim. The only reason you need tzaddikim on this world is to teach us how to be better, to be the role models for us, okay? So they give us Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu gave us Torah, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, everybody gives us something, gifts that we have, so that we can be the best we can be. Because the way it's in this world, seeing is much more impactful than anything else. So having that role model, it doesn't always, that's what tzaddikim are here for. But that's not what the world is here for. The world is here for Baalei Teshuva, which means that we are destined to all make mistakes, big ones and small ones. And the point is to learn from them, turn it around, and do the right thing the next time. And the next time you're gonna make another mistake. Moshe Rabbeinu, 40 years in the desert, face to face with God. He saw the back of Hashem. He was on the mountain. He's in heaven. 40 days he doesn't. How? He hits the rock. Right? He hits the rock. If Moshe Rabbeinu can't get away with a mistake, then none of us can get a mistake. So why do we eat ourselves up? And you know, he doesn't eat himself up. That's the interesting thing. And the same thing with Aaron. When it came to the Egel, when he couldn't stop the golden calf, he failed. It bothers him terribly, don't get me wrong. But you don't see the sense of self. I'm a cockroach, I'm a nobody. I was so stupid. How could I do such a thing? Only when there's a strong sense of self do we do that to ourselves. But when a tzaddik, this whole purpose is for God, there is no sense of, he made a mistake, fine, he couldn't do this, whatever. There's no sense of self. The more I berate myself, the greater my sense of self. On the unhealthy, but always a sense of self, a very strong, is unhealthy, whether it be on the narcissistic side or I berate myself too much. And that's really where CBT comes in. You know, CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. It is so enormous in changing our way. Tanya talks about that the whole time, hundreds of years before this therapy came about. Because the way we think impacts our entire life, the way we behave, and that impacts us. And that generally, if the I is big, of course, we're going to think wrong. Because even if you looked at me funny, and I say, oh, why'd you look at me funny? What did I do wrong? Who was she to look at me like that? One reaction, or what did I do wrong? And you start scrutinizing, the eye is way too big. Maybe she just had a very hard day, didn't even notice you. And maybe she needs a little compassion. But why am I judging her for wrong, thinking that she looked at me cross-eyed? Already I am judging her for wrong. With the same thought, I can turn it into a positive. You see that? So Tanya starts out explaining our makeup. Know that you have two souls. The first parak, the first chapter, you have an animal soul. It's very important. It takes care of your life. We couldn't exist here without an animal soul. But in that animal soul, every soul has a level of will. It has a yetzer. It has a will. Are you going to turn it into a yetzer hara? Are you going to turn it into a negative will? Or are you going to turn it into a good will? That's your choice. Got it? All right. Then you have the next parak, you have a neshama. That is an actual part of God. Amazing. Imagine that we all have a part of God in us. That's our essence. Each one godly. What more do we need for our self-worth? I'm stupid. I'm a nobody. Wait a minute. I have a chelek elokam imal mamash. I have a portion of God in me. What greater self-worth do I need from God that he gave me a piece of himself? You know, you give your heart to people. Do we really give our heart to people? It's still in me. Of course it is. It's a concept. But God actually gave me a soul. He actually gave me a part of him. It is such an amazing thing. Maybe I'm not using my life right. Maybe I need to improve. Well, yes, the world was made for Bali Tshuva. That's exactly, I should get better and better and better. Nobody wants to rest in peace one day too soon. So life is a struggle. That's what Tanya tells us. Who are you going to choose? Yourself or someone else? And you know what? Yes, there are times you must choose yourself. Your health, your sanity. We're not, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to pick someone else. Person can't live like that. But you have to make a choice. Is this health, sanity? Or is this a little bit narcissistic? Right? So that is our struggle. You made a mistake? No problem. We have a Rosh Hashanah every year. And that God gives us 10 days and a whole Elul to say, I'm sorry, and to learn from our mistakes. And you know what? You can say, I'm sorry every single day. Just turn it around and do something good and become healthier. Okay, and don't beat yourself up. Tanya makes that clear. Don't beat yourself up. Doesn't do you any good. Acknowledge what you've done and move on. Turn back onto the right path. So the second goes, like I said, is the nefesh elokis, is the actual part of Hashem, which is such a remarkable thing. The reason we don't even connect to it so much is because I don't think we could function. It would be so remarkable. We wouldn't be able to exist in our daily life if we understood what it means to have a little piece of God in us, a neshama, and how much that matters to God. The fact that he gave me a neshama means that I matter more to him than I to myself. And that is what is so remarkable. Okay? Every day, when we say that you gave me back our soul, Rabba emunasecha, great is your faith in me. He knew how much I botched up yesterday. He knows I'm sleeping in this morning. Rabba emunasecha, great is God's faith in us, that we will use our soul and the gifts that he's given us well. Isn't that amazing? How come I don't have that faith in myself? Wouldn't that be amazing if I woke up every morning feeling that way? Okay, but we really can't access our soul. Too hard. And that's why we really can't access ourselves. Do we really know ourselves? One of the things that I learned studying temperament theory, which was amazing, is understanding my temperament. And I was able to understand how others view me. And some of that was so surprising to me. And I'd ask my siblings, my friends, my children, is this true about me? And they'd say, yeah, sure. What are you thinking? Of course, this is you, okay? So I am me. I should have known me. I should have known how I am viewed. The only problem is I can't even see me. You all see me better than I see me. Okay, I can only see myself in a mirror, and then it's distorted because right isn't right and left isn't left. It's totally distorted. I cannot see me. The one person who should see me best cannot see me. What are the chances we're going to goof? Okay, so look at this way God, you cannot access your soul. It's too holy, too lofty, too inner. Okay, but we have it. Okay, so just because you have money sitting in a safe and you're not using it, or gold, doesn't mean you're not wealthy. Having that assurance is such a huge thing. Anybody with with money in the bank will tell you that, right? So that's what retirement is all about. That you don't touch it. And even if you don't touch it your whole life and you leave it to your children, whoa! So the fact that you can't access your soul, we live with it. It gives us life, but we don't understand it. We can't access that feeling of it. Tanya says it's too hard. So the third parak of Tanya goes into the makeup of the soul. Soul is light. God is light, not physical light, but the only way to describe it is light. But you cannot see light if it doesn't have a vessel. Light will not function without a bulb. Okay, the sun cannot give light without a globe, without the sun globe. Light in itself has to have a vessel. Okay, so the entire world was created with the God's light, but the vessels are called sphirot. And that is the architectural, that is the imprint on the everything in this world. The entire world was created with the 10 sphirot. There are 10, and people have the 10 sphirot in them. Everything has the impact of the 10 sphirot. So the third chapter goes into understanding the sphirot. Again, it's a very lofty concept. It's very hard to understand, okay? And really hard to access. But understanding it is huge, because Tanya explains the 10 sphirot are divided into 3. You can divide it in many ways. Even the luchot, the 10 commandments, are based on the 10 sphirot, and there it's in 2. So you can have it in 1 because it's all one thing. You can have it in 2. You can have it in 3s. You can have it in 4s. There's different ways that you can divide it. I'm going to do, so let's talk about the Tanya talks about the 10, doesn't go into every single one of them, but it explains that the head has 3 of them. You have Chochmah, Bina, and Da'at. That's where Chabad comes from, right? The whole idea of Chabad being different than other Chassidim, because our focus is on philosophy and studying, and using that to do Torah mitzvahs, creating a much more personal relationship with God. Where by other Chassidim, the focus wasn't on Chabad. The focus was on the midot, the emotions. So for them, going through a Rebbe, a connection through a Rebbe, was more important than listening to the Rebbe, was more important than actually the learning aspect of Kabbalah, of Chassidus. Okay. And there was, in time of the Alter Rebbe, there was a whole argument. Do you open this up for the world or do you not? And the Rebbe said to open it, the whole focus of the Rebbe was to open it up to the world. And he wrote Tanya, and everyone else disagreed, and it became I don't know, everyone else, but a lot of other Rebbes disagreed, and it became a little bit of a struggle. But, and we know, I mean, for those that are Chabad, know that his daughter, Dorlea, gave up her life so her father would be able to continue it. So it's the legacy. So it's it became a huge thing, but not something that we're going to get into now. And by the way, it is a woman, right? Dorlea, the Alter Rebbe's daughter, okay, who actually, so to speak, gives her life for the continuity and the ability for Chassidus. We could not have had Tanya here probably if Dorlea had not done what she had done. Chassidus would not look the way it is if it wasn't for Dorlea, for their Alter Rebbe's daughter. I would say the same thing today. You know, we look at the woman's role and the men's role. The men's role is very important. I am not, in God forbid, in any way trying to diminish this whole idea of who's better, who's worse. Already, it's starting at the wrong point. It's not coming from a neshama. if I have to be better than you, or my daddy has to be stronger than your daddy. You see what I'm saying? It's a silly argument, okay? Because it's all about a capital I, and that's not our purpose. We're born with a capital I, and the idea is to make it less and less and less, that you become as important to me as me. So when I say this about the feminine or the it's not to diminish in any way. But as women, we always, we talk about equality. The reality is that even when you look at the Rebbe's work, the work of the Shluchim, there is no way it could have been done without the women. Absolutely not. The idea that women have a lesser role, if you look at the virus today, the shuls closed down, the stores closed down, the movie houses closed, the cinema, whatever, the theaters closed down. Talk about the schools closed down. There was one thing that nothing can close it down, and that is the home. Without a home, there is no survival, and there's no safety, and there's no comfort. And who creates that in the home? So for the world to say about equality of women, even as women, to look at our role as homemakers and to diminish it, when push comes to shove, we cannot survive without it? Well, wait a minute here, okay? Do you know that when the soldiers are wounded, what is the one word that they say more than any other? Who are they asking for? Their mother. Okay, so men have a very important role and women have a very important role. And let us not diminish it because the verse says this or this says that. Understand where it's coming from. Here's the funniest part about the whole thing, okay? Women want equality, but when we marry a man, we want him to be smarter than us, taller than us, older than us, more secure, so he can give us our security. Let's fill that in, okay? But we want equality, right? How do you have equality if you want your husband to be smarter than you, understand you? Go ahead, let's go through the list. Have the money, have the this, have the older, tall. It's a mixed message. And men are so intimidated by it, they don't know what to do. So they look for women that aren't so strong because it's too scary, okay? We give a mixed message. Women have a remarkable role here, and so do men. We want the men to be a little bit more, and we demand it of them, and they don't even want us to demand it. Don't be my rabbi, okay? So Tanya explains both. That is what's so fascinating with Tanya. Look at what we're here for. My father was a chassid. My father was the last of the Lubavitchers to be born in Lubavitch. And my father passed away 2 years ago. He lived to 102, okay? And he had a tremendous impact on me. He taught me Shara Yichud Ve'emunah, which is the second book of Tanya, as a bat mitzvah gift when I was 12. We spent the year, and Shara Yichud Ve'emunah is not an easy part of Tanya. So so when we would part, when I'd come visit and we would part, he would say to me, this is a Hasidic way of, he used to say to me, when he said goodbye, and it was hard because he didn't know if we'd see each other again, right? He was elderly, so we didn't know if we'd see each other again. He'd say to me, Esther, sollst ausführen die Kavanah. You should accomplish the mission. And I took it as a blessing and as a directive, that his blessing would give me the strength and also as a directive. You should accomplish the mission. The mission is the purpose of what God created in this world, the kavanah. The kavanah is more the mission, the intent of why we're here. Accomplish, God, that's what he used to bless me. You should accomplish it. But also within that bigger intent, there is the reason that I'm here. Accomplish what I'm here for. That should be our focus. What are we here for? What are we here to give and create? Every one of us has creativity in us. Every one of us has strength. Everyone is a gift. Everyone is here because God needs you, me here for a purpose. And Tanya teaches us all that. So let's not focus on the negative. Shen, throw it away. This one has more, this one's smarter, this one's richer, Stop looking right and left. How fast are we going to crash when we're driving and looking right and left? But the further down the road you look, the smoother the ride, right? When you're sitting in a car and you're ready to throw up because the driver has the foot on the gas and on the brake, it's because they're looking 2 inches in front of their nose. But when you're looking around the bend as far as you can, the car is going to have a smooth turn. And that's the way it's in life. So let's stop looking left and right and back, and let's give every other person their quality. They also have a nefesh eloki. They also have a godly soul. They also have 10 sfirot. And they also have all these gifts. Now, when it comes to the 10 sfirot, we have different strengths of 10 sfirot. Some can have more chachma, some can have more bina, some can have more ahava, love, some can have more wisdom, some can have more understanding. We all have what we need to fulfill our mission here. That's what we have, okay? And that's all we need. If we're given more, what would we do with it? We would be like in a prison that we can't use all our talents to the best of our ability. You don't want more than you can use, because that is way too confusing and too hard to handle. That's when you have the concept of, God forbid, shvirat hakelim. If you learn in Chassidut, the world of tohu and tikkun, there was a world of shirat where the vessels broke. What does it mean the vessels break? When the light is too much for the vessel. If a human being has too much talent and they cannot do with it what it needs, it breaks them. You don't want that. You want exactly what you were given to use to the best of your ability to fulfill the mission that we're here for the relationship that we have with each other and with God. Okay? So we go into the 10 sfirot, and it's based on the body. When God created the world, 10 sfirot, he created first a world where the sfirot were independent. Now, to understand these concepts is very lofty. It's very hard to understand the light of God. I mean, how are you going to get there? It's even hard to understand the vessel that holds this godly light, because what I'm picturing is a vessel, a cup, a plate, a bag. That's nothing with the sfirot, okay? It's totally off. But that's where, okay, so God creates, but to understand, even if you teaching a blind person a shiny apple, even if you can't grasp it, you still know more than if you never knew about a shiny red apple. Okay, so the sfirot is the way God created the world. God's light in vessels. But they were independent. What does it mean they were independent? Each one felt they didn't need the other. So you have chachma and bina, right? Chachma is the head. The head is made up of 3 parts. Chachma, bina, das. Chachma is that initial spark. You know, you have a thought, and you're like a wow, a thought, an aha moment. If you don't take it into bina is analysis, understanding, you're going to lose the thought. How often does that happen? All day. We have a thought, we forget. Sometimes you forget and then we remember it because it went into bina, but not enough. But it's still enough to grab, okay? If you take the thought and you don't analyze it, you can't go anywhere. So chachma and bina are interrelated. And then you have dat. Dat is perception. Perception is choosing. Perception is personal. Perception is subjective. Okay? So you have dat. Dat chooses which thought is going to go into bina. And then da'at chooses, that's called da'at, that's one element of da'at, da'at divine two. And then another element of da'at is that it chooses what to connect to in emotions. So if I have a thought and I don't connect to it personally, it's gone. I'm not going to do much with it. You know, people, they talk all day, but you don't see the action. They haven't taken the thought further. You see that? And they can be the smartest people. And you're like, And sometimes you have people who will take a thought all the way through and create unbelievable. But in order for it to get to action, it must go through your head, the emotions, and then to action. If it doesn't go that flow and you just do it without thinking, then it looks like you did it without thinking. Okay? Or if you acted emotionally from your heart without thinking, sometimes it's okay, but sometimes most of the time it's not. Okay? So that's what Tanya explains, how it goes, the process. Okay? So you have 3 sfirot. And now, in the world of Tohu, Chochmah and Bina didn't crash. Part of Da'at crashed, and all the sfirot crashed because Chesed said, I don't need, generosity said, I don't need discipline. And discipline said, I don't need humility. You see, if I go through all 7, Tanya doesn't focus on all 7, and I'm already at 10, I only have 10 minutes left, so I'm not, and I want to go on. So it focuses on all, okay, and tells you all the sfirot. You're made up of 10 sfirot. You can't control your sfirot. The amount of generosity, sfirot is your wiring. You cannot control your wiring. That's your destiny. How much chesed you have in your wiring so that you can now use it is in a controlled state. If you use it to the maximum, it would be remarkable. Okay? But some people by nature have more chesed, and some people by nature have more chesed being generosity, and more people have more discipline. People who have more chesed are going to be more impulsive. Generosity is impulsive. You just give. The generosity, it has impulsivity to it. Not all generosity, but generosity at its core must have impulsivity to it. Okay, you see? Now, but discipline doesn't have impulsivity to it. And how important is discipline in life? So people who are disciplined, they can be very generous, but it'll be much more disciplined than people who are chesed. And you see that in Torah. Avraham had tremendous generosity. He gave away food, didn't matter to whom and to what. He had a mission to bring God to the world, and he just tremendous generosity. He had tremendous movement, generosity. Yitzchak was much more contained. He was extremely disciplined. So when it came to the Akedah, he said, tie me up so I don't move when it came to the sacrifice, because he was extremely disciplined. You see people work, and you go, how come I can't be so disciplined? It's not your wiring, okay? So that is not my wiring. I do have discipline, but that's not my strength. So yeah, is my kitchen as organized? So sometimes when I'm looking for my tools, and I'm thinking, my husband, who's extremely organized, and I think, okay, where would he have put it? So let me think. He will say, oh, the knife belongs next to the cutting boards, because that's you see, I go through the process of how somebody who's organized would think, but when I'm doing things, it takes me too long to think like that, and I'm not interested. I just know where I put my knives, and it's good enough for me, okay? But somebody that's organized will have their ladles right next to the pots and the ladles next to the stovetop. Everybody, right? They're organized, they're disciplined. Their life will be disciplined. They'll be on time, they'll be punctual. Some people have a very hard time with punctuality. You see, that's the way people are wired. We don't have control over our wiring. We can strengthen each by using the other. And so in the world of tikkun, which is our world, the sfirot are set up according to the way we are the human body, because now they're all interrelated. If you are independent and don't need someone else, you're going to shatter. But if we are interdependent, not dependent, but we work together, that's healthy. So in the world of tikkun is about working together within our own body, with others, sfirot. You see that? And the last, so there are 6 emotions, and the last is action. Malchus is action. Okay? The quantity of your wiring, how thick the wiring, how thin the wiring, that is all destiny. You do not have control of whether you're gonna, of your wiring. That has to do with your mission. The next chapter goes on. Okay, so now we're at chapter 4. Is the one thing we have control over is machshava dibur maisa. Our thought, our speech, and our action, totally our control. So don't waste your time thinking about, am I better than somebody else? Do I have enough strength? Do I not have enough? Do what you have to do. This is your control. Machshava dibur maisa. Your thought, your speech, your action. When you're doing a thought, a speech, of action in Torah, like tzedakah, avas yisrael, love of a fellow Jew, charity, learning. When you're doing, you are hugging. It's like God and you are hugging. So somebody came to me who she was with a therapist, and the therapist told her that for her, it isn't so much the action. Okay, the therapist talking about herself. It's not so much the action, but it's the relationship. Okay, it's the relationship, feeling the love. Okay, feeling. So they came to. So anyway, we were talking about it, and I said that's very interesting. That's not what Tanya says. Okay, Tanya says the action is much more important in the relationship than feeling the love. And I'll ask you that question. What would you rather? That your spouse, your children just have this loving, they feel this love for you and you for them, but you ask them for something, you know, they're busy, they're tired, or would you rather that your husband or your children realize that you walked in tired and prepared you breakfast and a cup of coffee, your favorite? How much feeling of love, it's a nice thing, but without the action, but the action itself, that someone means that someone thought of you. Do they have an intense feeling of love? What's the difference? They thought of you. And that is it is with the Eibishter also, with God. When we do a mitzvah, we thought of God. Do I love cleaning for Pesach? Doesn't matter. Who am I doing it for? Not for me. Okay, I'm doing it for him. When I spend more money on kosher, who am I doing it for? Would I rather have the money for something else? Maybe. So what? You don't have to love every single mitzvah. You have to, it is about God that I'm doing it, not about the mitzvah in of itself. Of course, the mitzvah means God because it means something to him. Otherwise, why would he give me this mitzvah? So the mitzvah is huge. But doing is an expression of relationship or lack of. Feeling, hey, that's a great, Tanya says, oh, whatever. Avanir is a huge thing. Okay, love and fear of God is a huge thing. It is the wings that make the mitzvahs move. Avanir are the wings, how you elevate it. My emotion towards you will elevate the action, but the action is crucial for there to even be a relationship. And so that's what it, so, and that you have control of. You can decide your thought should be good, your speech should be good, your actions should be good. That's totally in your control. That initial thought wasn't good, you saw somebody and you had a negative thought, turn it around. You may not have controlled the first one, but you can control the second one. I was one time, when we used to come to New York, we live in Kansas City, and there isn't a real frum community. It's hard. Kansas City people move because there isn't a good school here, frum schools. And there's a Hebrew Academy that's a community day school that is across the board. It's not, they have every type of teacher and anybody. So if people want more for their children, they're gonna move out at a certain age. So it's hard to grow the community. So when I used to come to New York, it was very important for me. It was very important for my children's education that they should see. I would take them. The first thing I would do is I take them to see the Rebbe. okay? So if we came in the morning, I'd take them for mincha. If we came the night before, I want them to see the role model. I want them to see the Rebbe. Anyway, one time I'm standing with my children, they're in the front row, and there's a lot of people there inside that entrance. If anybody's been to 770, that small entrance lobby foyer, and I'm standing in the second row or the third row even. And as we're standing and waiting, this woman turns around in front of me. I don't know who she is, but her face wasn't good. I don't know if it was surgery. I don't know if it was a stroke. I don't know. I don't remember what was wrong. But I thought, oh my gosh, to look like that. Okay. And then the Rebbe comes out. The Rebbe comes out. He gives the children coins to put in the stockade. Very fast, walks through, says hello, you know what I mean? Hello to everybody. When I turned around and started leaving 770, I thought to myself, wait a minute. What did I just do? The Rebbe has so much work. I came for a blessing for my children. I came to use the Rebbe's time. And the only thing I can do in preparation to seeing the Rebbe was to think bad about someone else. So what did her face look like that? Maybe she saved a life. Maybe she did something very good for somebody today. Maybe she helped an old woman walk across the street. Maybe she doesn't have to have any value, anything that how is it that of all the things that I noticed, what was wrong? Maybe her eyes are beautiful. I didn't even notice what she was wearing. Why didn't I notice something good? Why is the first thing I noticed something bad? And I came to the Rebbe, no preparation. The whole idea is obviously start love a fellow Jew. The Rebbe is all about fellow Jew, and that's all I noticed. I was very upset with myself. So I made a hachalot, I made a resolution right then and there that when I see somebody, I will look for something to compliment them on. Okay? And I started doing that. I'd say, oh, I love the sweater you're wearing. Your dress matches your eyes. You have such a pretty color. I always focus on something. Okay. About a half a year goes by, and this woman says to me, you always say something nice when we meet. Okay. And I thought, and I thanked her, and I thought to myself, she doesn't realize the gift she just gave me. She thinks I'm such a nice lady. I always notice the nice. No. I made a decision to do that. And after half a year, I realized that it becomes second nature. See that? That's where we are Bali Tshuva. It was wrong what I did, but I got myself into a place of much greater accomplishment. Because if I didn't notice, who knows, I would have even done it, right? But in the meantime, I have an opportunity to give people a compliment, make them feel good when I see them. So I have control. I may not have control over the initial thought, but I can turn it around. And the chances are, when you have a negative thought, what is the percentage that you are correct? If life hasn't taught us how wrong we are over negative thoughts, when we panic, when we see the worst, then we aren't paying attention. So why be stingy on good thoughts? Why not turn it around? Even if we're wrong what do you lose on a good thought if you're wrong? Nothing. Actually, you gain because you're positive. You've done so much positive. But on a negative, okay, so we can control the negative thought. Speech. Some people are more do I have time to, I have to wind down. Yeah, I see it's 11 o'clock. I can go, yeah. Tanya is amazing. If you apply it to your life, it's such an amazing thing. You want to be healthy? Learn Tanya and apply it. Lofty, esoteric, I love that too, great. But there is a verse that we say, Mipsari echazeh Eloka. From my flesh, I can envision godliness. You want to understand God? Apply it to yourself. So I will end off with one story. One of my children once came home. They were in yeshiva, about 18 or whatever, and they were learning, Chassidus. And in yeshiva, you learn this all lofty concepts. And he came home and he said, Ma, people think they understand God. They don't understand. They understand God. They have a relationship. How can we even think that we have a relationship with God? It's so silly. God is God. Who are we? We are nothing. Okay. So I can tell from what he was talking that he was repeating something that he had learned. Okay. Yeah, true, we are nothing. But so I said to him, I said, I don't agree with what you just said. I don't agree with that. And maybe you learned it that way, and maybe your teacher taught it. And yes, at some level, what you're saying is correct. But I got to tell you something. When you were 2 weeks old and you've had your first smile, did you know me? Did you really know me? Anything about me? And it was the world to me. And when you were 1.5 years and I'd come home and you come running to the door, mommy, 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 did you know me? What did you know about me? How much do you know me today? And you're an adult. But when I opened that door and you were so excited to see me, how much did that mean to me? Okay, it's the same thing with Eibishter. It doesn't matter if we're acting like 2-year-old and like a 2-week-old and we smile at him. It doesn't matter if we're acting like in our terrible twos and we're so excited to see him. That's nachas. We're not judged by how, God is not judging us by, oh, are we using our full seichel? We're not judged when we're 2 like we're 40. And we never turn 40 in front of God. We're always babies. How can we? But the nachas we give with the smile or the sharing or the learning or the caring, that's a true hug. Anyway, God should bless you all with a wonderful, happy, healthy year. Had tremendous success in your learning. Take it and go with it. You know, in tremendous success. And we should all be this year in Yerushalayim, Sukkot time, pouring the wine and the water and dancing and with the juggling and the light, everything. We should all be in Yerushalayim celebrating. Thank you, Shmuley.
Thank you very much. I know you can't hear us.
Any questions or it's done? Go ahead.
Can you hear us?
I can't hear. Okay.
That's the trouble. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the trouble.
What? You'll have to repeat. I didn't hear what you said.
The trouble was you couldn't hear us through the Zoom.
I can't hear you, yeah. How come? Oh, it's my Zoom? I have a problem with my Zoom, maybe. I don't know, everything is on. And listen, okay, as long as you heard me, that's what you wanted. Okay.
Thank you very, very much.
You're very, very welcome. All the best.